Hello and welcome to the next in our Platform Insights series of interviews. I'm Nicola Hayes from Platform Markets Group, and I'm absolutely delighted to be here today with Herve Hellez, who is Strategy Director for Europe for Schneider Electric, and I don't think anyone needs an introduction to Schneider Electric. It is one of the most recognised companies in our sector. So I'm going to start off by asking you just a couple of questions, and I ask this to everybody in my interviews, which is, how on earth did you end up in this industry?
Well, first, hello, Nicola. Thank you for having me. Very real pleasure to be with you today. I ended up in this industry because the market is really vibrant and it's really, really interesting. I've got a fairly mixed background. It may not sound like it, but I'm French, based in Spain. Started my career in the automotive industry, and 15 years ago, I decided that I was absolutely fascinated by sustainability and energy efficiency. So I was really lucky to join Schneider Electric in that sense. And I'm the kind of profile who gets easily bored. So I always like every 2 or 3 years to discover something new, which I was lucky to do inside Schneider Electric. And luckily enough, 3 years ago, I could join our division who looks after the data center market. It's been an absolute blast, going very, very fast. And it keeps me interested to this day, passionated.
It's a fabulous industry. I don't think there's anything better than it. So we're very, very glad that you've joined and found our weird little sector. Energy efficiency obviously is at the top of everybody's agenda, not only in terms of the infrastructure itself and access to energy being a problem, but there's also a big discussion, a big debate around what actually happens within the facilities itself.
Yep.
GPU as a service. Okay, could you first of all, for anyone, because we're very, very good in our industry at throwing around terms that everyone then pretends they know what they mean, and people don't always understand it. So could you explain a little bit about what it is?
Yeah, actually, we talk about GPU as a service or Neo Cloud service providers.
Neo Cloud is the vibrant term at the moment.
Depends on what's the latest term. Really, GPU as a service refers to the provisioning of GPU infrastructure as a service in the cloud for customers to leverage high-density parallel compute infrastructure without owning that infrastructure. Now, that's something that's been developing very heavily since the end of 2022 with the rise of generative AI. We all know what happened with ChatGPT, of course, and the interest in large language models, developing new models, training, inference. That brought a lot of new companies to the market, and actually a lot of startups and even, let's say, universities looking at that market. But not everybody necessarily had the capacity to actually put the capital for these expensive, high-density parallel compute infrastructures. So GPU as a service came as a solution to give to these companies the ability to leverage this infrastructure, but just using it as a service, paying as they go, and give them the ability to scale. Now, this is a new breed of companies that we've seen coming to the market. Some of them very, very famous these days, the CoreWeave, Lambda Labs, Vultr. Some more European, Nebius, Nscale, have been coming up with this new business model. Many of them coming up actually from the crypto mining industry, leveraging their existing relationships with actors like NVIDIA to leverage the latest generation of technology, the latest GPUs, and that gives them a lot of flexibility in the market.
And I'm just going to say, what do you think the impact of the growth in this, and I said whether we call it neo clouds or because we do like new terms,
we do.
Or GPU as a service, what do you think the impact of the growth of that model is going to be on the data center market in Europe?
Well, listen, when we look at the market, I was looking recently at a study from 451. They're evaluating that the market for GPU as a service, as an overall market, could be reaching $27 billion by 2019.
Huge.
That's a 34% compounded annual growth rate. Now, that means the CapEx for data centers on the back end of that would have to follow a similar trend. Now, you could argue, okay, why is that happening? Is it a new fashion, or is there something underlying with that? Now, it's interesting when you talk to CIOs of enterprises, you realize that 89% of enterprises are effectively using generative AI and AI models.
Yeah.
That means they have a demand, and because they are experimenting with this, rather than deploy their own GPUs and their own infrastructure, they're going towards these models. So they're really driving that growth. The other main driver that I see in the market is that so far we've been talking a lot about training new models, so the training of the ChatGPTs of OpenAI of this world. But of course, once you've trained the model, you've got to get to a point where you're using it. So moving to what we call inference, because we like these fancy
we like the terms.
Yeah. The use of a model and the way the models are now evolving to be self-reasoning and moving to what we call agentic AI is creating actually more scale and more requirements for the use of these GPUs. That's really what's driving the growth. And obviously, more growth in demand, more growth in capital into the data center to sustain the infrastructure.
And better use of capital across the industry?
Well, actually, it's true, but actually when you look at these parallel computing and high density compute, you can argue it's a better use of capital in the sense that they tend to be more efficient. The more we bring density in these infrastructure, the more efficiency we tend to get out of them. So that's obviously, all in all, a better use of capital as well.
And I think, we again, back to that whole energy piece, and there's been a lot of negative publicity and PR around not only energy, but also water usage. And people tend to look at the infrastructure itself as opposed to what is actually going on within the data centers and from things like the GPU side. You think this is going to then be a game changer in terms of as part of a holistic overview of what's going on in that energy piece, being part of the solution to the problem?
Yeah, I think it can be. So, obviously first you have different data centers for different type of usage, right? Let's say a data center for GPU as a service or a data center for AI infrastructure, high density compute infrastructure is a very, very different animal to a data center for the cloud industry. Overall, the trend that we see is towards more high density, as I said, which is bringing better energy efficiency. Of course, is bringing the needs for new technologies. So we are seeing liquid cooling coming in, etc. Sometimes we need to demystify. There are people who think liquid cooling means more usage of water. It's a different topic, different topic. Liquid
One
cooling,
we could probably spend an hour discussing.
Yeah, let's not do that. Let's keep everybody with us. But really, we see new technologies that we are working on to bring more efficiency and more sustainability in these infrastructure. So I really think as we push the boundaries of what we are doing, we are developing again new technologies that will contribute to higher efficiency. And I think today we do have solutions even to go waterless on some data centers. So again, the technology is there to manage the sustainability element for sure.
Talk to me about Schneider's involvement and your way into this market and how you are managing that internally.
So really, I see our role really in two different areas, right? There's an area that's technological, which is, as you know, Schneider, we do provide end-to-end solutions. That's what we call grid to chip to chiller. So we bring the power in the data center to the chip, and we extract the heat outside of a data center. But that's not, our scope of work is not limited to that. Obviously, we provide all the software to manage the data center. We extend to services. Actually, little people know how much we do in services, up to supporting customers in finding sites with the right level of power for their projects. We provide sustainability services. I think few people know we are one of the biggest providers of power purchase agreements for the industry. But that's only one part. That's more the technological and service part of what we do. The other big piece where we see our role playing is in bringing the whole ecosystem of partners around the topic. Really, when we look at the ecosystems, you can talk about data center operators and so on. But the neo cloud companies, some of them develop their own data centers and we own their own data centers. Many of them are just deploying into data centers from co-locators. And they'd be working with server providers who are integrating the technology of NVIDIA. So when we think about the cycle of the industry today, which has been accelerating massively, I think we were on architectures that were evolving on a 4-5 yearly basis. We are now on 2 years or even shorter. It's essential that as a company, we're effectively working with companies like NVIDIA, we're working with server manufacturers, we're working with service providers, with co-locators together, bringing everybody at the table to see how we can accelerate and bring the right solutions to solve the technological equation.
The more we work in these little silos and across, and I've said for a long time about our industry, is we need to work across all those different industries to be able to solve these issues. And it certainly seems from where I'm looking that Schneider Electric are doing that very, very well. Very quietly, actually.
Yeah, but I think, it's not about making noise, it's about solving the issues, right? And this is where we see our role. I think one of the big, value add that I see beyond the technology that is probably the core of the problems of the neoclouds today is talking about capacity and removing all the bottlenecks in being able to go as fast as the neoclouds. I mean, the neocloud companies are among the companies that I've seen going the fastest to market. We're talking about data centers being developed in months. We're talking about, say white space, sorry, words again, being developed in weeks. To do that, you need, looking at my automotive background before I was at Schneider, what we called integrated supply chain, making sure that the whole ecosystem we are working together to better plan and better align our own supply chain to be able to match to the demand and the timing of our customers. And that's certainly what we're trying to do here.
And I think there are a lot of companies across the sector that could learn a lesson from that this is the way we all need to work going forward, given the demands and the figures that we've seen in the conference today, which are quite scary actually when you look at all the infrastructure things behind it. So well done to Schneider Electric. And thank you so much for joining me and having a chat about all of this.
It's my pleasure.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much, Nicola.
Thank you.